In thinking about what I do, one of the most important things to me in giving value to my customers is that I offer education. Most of you all, a lot of you all have bought and sold houses before, but the industry changes continually, and today I decided that I would just go over the standard decisions that everybody makes and touches on when you make an offer on a house, so that you could just think about those for a few minutes. This is my wife, this is my daughter. I've called her Annie, she's now transformed into Elizabeth or Lizzie or E. That's her new college persona. And she's standing in front of her new soon-to-be home at Mississippi State. So we're making that transition soon. There are typical decisions that are part of every contract that a buyer makes when they get ready to purchase a home. Some of those are just the favorite legal name that you want to take title of property in. And those of us that have bought and purchased homes a lot, that's no big deal. But sometimes, I ask a young couple, and they go, how do you want to take title? They go, gosh, I don't know. I mean, we all have our nicknames, but at this point, you just sort of pick your legal name that you're going to put on your contracts. Another decision is the items that a buyer wants to remain with the home. There's certain things that normally stay with the home, the built-in appliances, the window treatments and hardware. There's a list in the contract that's just pre-printed. But there is a place in the contract to say if there's something there that maybe isn't a part of that and you want to ask for it. You get a chance to actually say, I want that stainless steel refrigerator that looks so great in that kitchen. There's also a place in the contract to ask for any items that you don't want to stay with the home. If I looked out into a backyard and I saw that sitting there, that would definitely be on my I don't want to. Sure, I'll take it. But I know several people in here would be like, whoa, that 57 Chevy is mine now, because it's in the backyard of the house that I'm going to buy. So there are other items, like sometimes there's just a wood pile, sometimes there's a bunch of junk in the attic, but there's a place in the contract for a buyer to say, I want this gone when I buy the house. And that's important because you're going to have lots to do when you move in. You don't want to have, if you don't want this, you don't want to have to deal with hauling it off. One of the biggest decisions is how much to offer for the home. And that relates to a lot of different things. And part of what I do as your realtor is I help you understand the territory. Some of the pieces of that are, there's the list price relative to the value of the house, the actual value. Sometimes a house is listed way higher than it's really worth. Sometimes it's listed really low, and then you may feel a little bit funny about offering full market price, but it might be a really good thing to do in that circumstance. And then sometimes they're just right on the money. The numbers of days on the market, most buyers come to this transaction and they don't want to offer list price. But if a house has just been on the market like 12 hours, the buyer's not going to come way off the price at that point because they want to get the response in as to what the market thinks about their pricing. The numbers of days on the market relative to the typical days on the market in that area, the condition of the property can make a house can look a certain way on the market analysis. And when I sit down to write an offer, I do a market analysis. We're sitting there looking at what is the market analysis window 6 months back from today. So we're looking at real-time numbers. And the condition of the property can change what those numbers really mean effectively to the buyer. Whether or not they're competing bidders, out of the last 10 offers that I've written, half of those would take competing bidders. And sometimes there were 2 and 3 and 4 other bids on the table. So that also makes a lot of difference. And for me to get the sense of what's going on with those other bidders. And buyer motivation, sometimes I write offers and the buyer goes, this house is okay. It meets our need. And then other times they're telling me, Sandy, we've got to get this house. This is the one, if we don't get this one, we're going to be looking back at this one. and talking about it 10 years later, how we missed that house. So that makes a lot of difference. It really does, as far as the pricing strategy. Some other things to think about are closing cost fees. Those can vary considerably depending on the type of loan that the buyer's getting. Those may be offset by loan assistance programs. The home seller can actually pay 3 to 6% of the buyer's closing costs, so that's a big part of the negotiations. Another help is sometimes buyers can get gift funds from family members. And there's a place on the contract to write in exactly how much money that buyer wants that seller to pay for them. And that balances off the price on the seller's bottom line. Some other items are who the buyer wants to represent them for the closing. That person or institution has to be on the lender's approved list. How much earnest money to give. That can send a signal to the seller, oh, these people are like, gosh, they only put like $500 earnest money down. They may not be able to afford to buy the house. Or $3,000, wow, these guys, they're well positioned to buy this house. When to set the closing day, normally it's at least 30 to 45 days out now because there are a lot of new loan stipulations. But a thing that happens typically is to ask the lender, when can we realistically close this house? And the lender will give that information to the buyers. Another item is the setting the possession date after the closing date. If the house is vacant, normally once the money changes hands from the buyers to the sellers, then the buyer gets the house that day. But if there's someone living in the house and they're moving, that negotiation can become a lot more personal. Inspections and protections. It's typical and very prudent to get a home inspection, to get a termite inspection. A lot of you guys that bought houses a long time ago, the sellers paid for the termite letter. There were a lot of drive-by termite letters, so now that's a buyer's expense. Options for any other desired inspections. As a buyer, you can inspect a house to your heart's content, but you have to pay for it. So that's another decision. The final walkthrough inspection right before you sign the papers, just to be sure the house you put the offer on is still there. Nothing's happened in the interim. And some protections are flood certification to be sure the house is not in a floodplain. If it is, there's a lot more expense involved and more liability. Survey used to be mandatory, they're not now most of the time. Time is of the essence. Over the years, the timing of real estate contract used to be looked at as on or before or about. In other words, as long as everybody was trying really hard to make this thing happen, you still had a valid contract. And that played out in the court system. But it didn't work real effectively in a lot of ways because things could linger on a while and affect people's lives dramatically. So now there's a lot of dates in a contract. And anytime any date changes, it needs to be extended. It has to be extended indefinitely. Risk of loss during contract. How many of you guys were here for the ice storm we had, a Hurricane Elvis? We had houses under contract that then had trees in the middle of them. So there's a protection in the contract. If the property is damaged less than 10% of the contract price, the seller has to make it whole. Anything more than 10%, you're back to negotiating. You can say, yeah, rebuild the house for me, and let me pick the colors. You can say, I don't want to build this. And move on, you get your own money back. Special stipulations, there are places and ways for buyers and sellers to just take care of their personal items, their personal desires in the middle of any transaction. Time limit of offer. If a buyer's in town for 3 days and they have to make a purchasing decision and head back to California, they don't want to give 2 days for that seller to think about the offer. They want to know maybe within 12 hours, yes, we can work this out, or no, we can't, because then they want to go on down the list. So those are just a few of the things. Do you guys have questions on any?
Well, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about a number of days in the market. What's the impact of that on if it's on there too long?
Well, if it's on there too long, it just gets sort of market sour. People go, oh wow, most of the houses in this neighborhood sold in 20 days, 30 days, this house has been on the market for 2 years, there's something wrong. And I was looking at, yesterday I was changing some pricing for a house in Germantown I've got on the market that we're doing a major renovation on. And there was a house in their neighborhood that had been on the market for 2 years. It's a great neighborhood. So you immediately look at it as damaged in some way. There's something wrong with that situation.
Does that impact the neighborhood as well?
A little bit, but there's always those odds. If you see a whole lot of them, if the average in the neighborhood is a year, yeah, it does. But just one or two is just no big deal.
I'm relatively new to home ownership, but when I bought my house, I would have liked to have gone in and done a lot of work to the bathrooms and the kitchen and everything. How are people able to build a loan in order to be able to buy a house and then redo everything? Is that coming out of their pocket, or is there a loan specific?
There's 3 ways normally that you can accomplish that. One is you just buy it with enough reserve funds to take care of the projects, or you begin working on projects a little bit at a time. Another way is if you buy a house with a lot of equity, in other words, if you paid $100,000 for a house and it appraises at $120,000, you could get a home equity line of credit. Markets takes care of those, and then you could have that money to work on the house. There are also loans, one is a FHA 203K, where you can actually borrow the money on the front end and make your repairs, and then you get payment from them in increments. It's a booger to work out because you have to have documentation on top of documentation, but there's a lot of different possibilities. It's a booger. It's a booger.
I don't know, do you keep up with any incentives for first-time home buyers, or what the current situation with that might be?
How I keep up with,
Or are there any new things out there for first-time home buyers?
there's some great programs right now. First-time home buyers, depending on your income, can buy a house for $500 from you. And that's just one program. There's some programs where you start with an FHA loan, and then you have the City of Memphis Down Payment Assistance Program, and you can stack a couple of programs on top of one another. Some of those also have decreased interest rate, and the difference between the pricing and the interest rates paid for by a government organization. And right now is a great time for first-time home buyers. There's a lot of options.
Since you all are in a city limits, and we have a computer age, is there any way to pull the code inspections as those homes were built to find out about where the electrical and the plumbing are for meeting requirements? That's always just, to me, a used house, especially if they get beyond 40 years, 30, 40 years old, you have no idea what's behind those walls.
There is a website you can go to and pull the permits. That's public information. It's readily available. You'll find that sometimes if a property is 100 years old or 50 years old, there have been some permits pulled, some not. But the main focus is on getting a really good home inspection, because there's some things, even though they're not up to code, they've stood the test of time, they're safe. You're not really living in a hazardous situation. Then there are other things that are not safe, and so that's the main focus of a good home inspector, is to keep you safe in that property and let you know about any repairs that may be coming up. Did I answer your question?
Kind of, yeah, and just a gee whiz question. Maria started literally a year ago to get into a rental house around here, and I've never seen that. So what's the issue here? The electrical panel was on the outside of the house. Why would that be allowed?
That's code now that they do. So, like now, if you go in the old federal boxes that were in the closet, they're real small inside the closet, and it's more of a fire hazard in the closet than it is outside. So now they poke the hole and they put it on the outside of the house.